It's the end of the year. We're all getting a little bit reflective. This video is different. We're gonna cover the last 6 years at an accelerated pace. I'm gonna tell you some of the lessons I've learned: medicine, entrepreneurship, dating, everything in between. And hopefully some of those lessons can help you out as well. So let's dive in. 2018, this is when I quit residency to focus full-time on Med School Insiders and some other entrepreneurial projects. And it was both fun and challenging. I was, for the first time on my own, tabula rasa, don't know what's happening next, because for your whole life, I mean, in the medicine path, you go, high school, then college, then med school, you take some tests, then residency, then attending. You always have the next step laid out for you. And for the first time, things were totally blank. Very exciting for that reason. Also stressful because there's no playbook on how to start a business. So you make some mistakes, but it was awesome. I was working 100+ hours most weeks, grinding hard, exercising a lot, living at home with my mom too. I wasn't proud of it, but I also didn't beat myself up for it because I knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel, that I was building this business and sure, I'm gonna move out of my mom's place. But for the time being, yeah, I had to live at home with my mom, a 28-year-old, newly minted MD that's living at home, like not normally what you'd expect. But it was all part of the path and part of the plan. And I think part of the reason why I appreciate that even more now than I did back then is because in entrepreneurship, the more I've been in this space, the more I've connected with other entrepreneurs, keep in mind that a lot of people are getting assistance in various ways, whether they are inheriting a business or they're taking out a loan from their family or some other financial help, but they're not gonna disclose that, right? So if you're comparing yourself to that where they already have a leg up, it's a losing game, it's a losing proposition. It is important to your trajectory, right? So if you are better today than you were yesterday or last year, you're gonna be happy. If you're worse, probably gonna be unhappy. And yeah, now I actually take pride in the fact that, yeah, it was pretty scrappy. I started the business by myself, didn't take money from anyone. I had a $16 Amazon tripod in 2016 when I started MSI, the YouTube channel, and look how far we've come. At this time, I was already very interested in personal self-development, but I dived into it even deeper. I did some formal processes, formal classes. This was also the first time I actually lived in the Bay Area as an adult, because I moved out when I was 17, graduated from high school, and I would visit the Bay, but I would never live there and connect with people and live like a local. So it was actually a lot of fun. I went to the city all the time, took BART very frequently, and made a lot of friends there. It was almost like the excitement of college all over again. It's like this whole new world of like, wow, I'm an adult and like exploring, because I felt that in med school and in residency, not having as much control of your time and having to study a lot more, I didn't realize that, guess what? Most people aren't living like that. And there's a lot of excitement connecting with other entrepreneurial minded people. This was also probably the peak of my personal productivity. Sometimes I look back at what I was doing in 2018, the amount of hours I put in, the level of focus and intensity and productivity, and I'm like, damn, I can't do that anymore. And I think part of that is just the environment, because when you're in that sink or swim mentality, you're on your own, you don't have a safety net. That's a big thing, right? If you don't have a safety net, you're gonna have a fire under your butt to really push hard. And things are different now, because now I sleep 7-8 hours almost every night, and I have a team that helps me with things. And like, as you grow and scale, there are different things you need to focus on. It's not about personal productivity anymore. It's now about leverage. Also, I took dating a lot more seriously with far more intentionality. There are a few friends I connected with in the Bay Area who also shared that sentiment, and we're like, 2 of them ended up in relationships very soon after, and it took me a little bit longer. I learned a lot about myself through the process of dating and improving that skill set. 2019, the theme here was adventure and development. My business now had gained some momentum, and I was like, I can see the end of the tunnel. I'm gonna move out of my mom's place in a couple months, but first I'm gonna go to Asia with some friends. And we went to Asia for 6 weeks. It's the longest I've ever done any trip. It was an epic trip. 5 cities, 6 weeks, and some of those stories, unfortunately, can't really share on YouTube. A few months after that is when I actually moved out of my mom's place. I was thinking San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland, that kind of area. But then one of my friends said, hey, I'm moving to Vegas and here's why. And he's like, do you want to come join me? Live as, my housemate. And I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. Because again, adventure, why not? Just like say yes to things. I was having a lot of fun being single and just dating around, and was considering at this time, like, do I want to be in a committed relationship? Do I want kids? Rather than just accepting the social narrative and the norm that that's what you're supposed to do. And once I decide that for myself, then I will pursue that decision with intentionality. So during this year, I was definitely a yes man. When opportunities arose, I was definitely yes. And prior to that, I was a little bit more analytical, and in my head, I'm like, oh, should I do this? What are the pros and cons? And this time I was just saying, whatever opportunities arise, I'm gonna try them out. And it was a lot more fun because of that. 2020 was the theme of loneliness and hobby exploration. So again, loving travel. And one of the reasons I moved to Vegas is that I love travel and it's a good travel hub. I planned a trip with me and a few friends for Japan in late January to early February of 2020. This is before lockdown in the US, but of course COVID was raging in Asia. And because I'm on infliximab, an immunosuppressant, we were concerned because there wasn't data back then as to how this new disease, how it's gonna, be handled by patients that are on this medication. So I spoke with my GI and he's like, you know what, probably safer not to. And I was like, yeah, I agree. So I canceled it, but my friends still went and they had a great time. And I haven't been to Japan since, but I'm going in 2024. And then lockdown happens. This was the time when I really realized how much I thrived on social connection. And when it was withdrawn, how lonely and sad. Like there was a lot of tension in my body and I just wasn't myself. My moods weren't right. I was a little bit more snappy, just not happy. Not the best time to move to Vegas because I'd moved to Vegas, maybe like 6 months, a little bit more than 6 months prior to that. And I wasn't as well connected socially. So you have this problem, feeling lonely, not enjoying lockdown, create a solution. So the solution I created was leaning into hobbies more, especially those that were more social, but still were safe from a social distancing perspective. So I did a lot of cycling. I did my first ever 100-mile century, made a video about it up here. I also started doing track days with my car for the first time ever, and that has been a whole new hobby that I continue to this day. It's an addiction. This also marks a time when my perspective really shifted with how I related to my car. Prior to that, and those who know me know that I really babied my car. I always parked it in the garage and I hand washed it myself, and I really took care of it because it had some sentimental value. It represented a lot of the grind and struggle in college. Why am I trying to preserve a material possession? Because the more that you care about something and try to preserve it and keep it clean and dent-free and always hand wash it to prevent swirl marks and, park it away from people so it doesn't get door ding and whatever, it's like the possession owns you more than you own the possession. So in that year, I put on about 35,000 miles. And I just saw it as a tool. I said, this is a tool to bring me joy, happiness, and cool memories right now. So I did a ton of road trips. I stopped flying at the time. So I drove to California a lot because I started dating a girl in California. And it wasn't just cars, because even with my business, I remember watching a YouTube video, some small YouTuber, maybe like 20K, 30K, and they had some professional equipment, nice lights, nice cameras. I was like, why am I skimping by on these like $50 Amazon lights? And I realized that scarcity mindset that I had previously in my life wasn't serving me anymore. 2021 was all about reinvesting and leaning into leverage. So I bought my first home, which was exciting because I wasn't expecting it to be as exciting as it was, since a lot of finance gurus, personal finance experts, they say just rent, you don't have to worry about the house, maintenance, you can move whenever you want. There's all these benefits to renting, just rent instead. I bought this house and I was like, this is awesome. The upside is way more than the downside. I can customize things, adjust things, and upgrade just the way I want. Get nice furniture because I know it's gonna fit here and it's gonna be here for a long time versus in an apartment. Don't wanna buy as nice of furniture. It was just great. I was really excited with that experience. And part of it too is, of course, it's a milestone that a lot of young professionals aspire to. And especially you're grinding hard, it's a culmination of that hard work. The important learning this year is that getting to that point of the business was largely dependent on my own productivity and work ethic, etc. I knew that to get to the next stage, to keep growing the business, it was no longer about me and my productivity, but now it's really about leverage. Leaned very heavily into hiring people and delegating tasks and not trying to squeeze out an extra 5% from my own productivity, but hiring 5 other people that can then, do 5 times the amount. I had already made somewhat of a shift by reinvesting in my own personal health. I started with a fitness coach in early 2020, but now I was getting business coaching. I was creating better systems. I was reinvesting in the business much more intentionally and aggressively. Now, I don't mean to poo-poo on personal productivity. I think a lot of people need to go through that phase because you then learn things that even if my 2017, 2018 level was up here and maybe now I'm here, I would never get to this point unless I had that phase where I could push the limits and see how do you maximize your time when you really need to. Because even now you may have sprints where you need to work really hard for a couple weeks. It's like your whole baseline gets shifted up. So now you can operate at 70% of your peak capacity and you can get a lot more done and feel like you have way more time for things like exercise and time with loved ones because you're much more efficient and focused during the time that you are working. But it can only take you so far. So if you are an entrepreneur, remember that leverage takes you a certain level, and beyond that, you need to lean into leverage. And leverage can be either hiring people, it can be using code and software and tools. It's multiple different methods, but the key thing with leverage is that you keep putting in the same input and it's the output that is getting magnified more and more. 2022, the theme here is meaning and fulfillment. So 2022, I had achieved a lot of the goals that I had set out earlier in my life. I started thinking, what else do I want that I'm not doing right now? And I had wanted to create videos on cars for a long time, but I was like, I'll do it when I have time. And I realized I'm never gonna have time, so I'm gonna have to make time. And I created Jabal on Cars, which is a POV car review channel focused on driving dynamics. And the beautiful thing is that with POV, point of view, you put a GoPro right up here. It takes very little time to film, very little time to edit. because you're not having multiple cameras and having to set up in different spots on the road. So it was very conducive to the kind of way that I wanted to approach it as more of a side hobby, a side hustle rather than a primary business. And I'm also connecting with people, not just the owners who let me review their cars. By the way, if you do have a cool car and you want me to review it, jabalandcars.com. I made a lot of friends that way, but also just other YouTubers. And I ended up somehow just stumbling into being this connector of sorts amongst these small to medium-sized YouTubers, let's say 10K to 500,000 subscribers. I was the person who was connecting a lot of them. And we ended up being in LA and we did like a podcast together and we just become friends since. I'm so grateful for Med School Insiders because they told me that it was only because I was an established YouTuber that had a large successful channel that they took me seriously. And then we ended up having a phone call and then meeting up in person because they get a lot of messages that are like that from other people. So once you have some success on YouTube, it can facilitate more success, connecting you to other YouTubers and other opportunities and so on and so forth. All right, now on to dating. So I've done a lot of reflection since 2020, 2021. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I do want a committed partner and I do want kids. So those are things that I decided for myself. And reflecting back, I tend to be happiest either in a relationship or in the first year of being single when casual dating is exciting, but then the excitement and novelty kind of wears off and it becomes kind of tedious. For me, trying to find that person here in Vegas was a bit of a struggle. It's a very fun city for dating, but not a very meaningful city for dating. This is Vegas. All right, so here's where things get a little bit weird. It's already gotten weird a few times in this video, but physical touch is really important to me. And not just in a romantic way, but even just platonically, like giving hugs to friends. I realized that a lot during COVID. And I was like, you know what? This dating thing, it's not working out. I'm not finding what I'm looking for here in Vegas. So let me get a dog because I can, pet the dog and cuddle with the dog and it's gonna address some of those needs. So I buy a Mazda CX-50. I was initially looking at some sporty sedans and then I was like, I need a larger vehicle because I'm gonna have this medium-sized dog. And then one of my buddies, Fenton from the Zygreen YouTube channel, he gets a dog, a puppy, and it's just like pooping everywhere, like diarrhea, just nonstop. And him and his girlfriend are so overwhelmed. I'm like, you know what? It's so hard for you two to handle a constantly pooping dog. How am I gonna do it? I'm like working more challenging hours and traveling a lot more. So it's just not feasible. All right, 2023 is all about health and fitness optimization. The thing that was really helpful here is I started seeing a doctor that I really clicked with, but I really leaned into that even more in this year. So we did a lot more testing and he really aligned with my philosophy on medicine. It's not about just following guidelines. It's about understanding the why. Why do we have certain guidelines and recommendations? And then once you understand from that first principles level thinking, then you can actually make informed decisions and then possibly make adjustments to what the guidelines say. The other key things here was really upping my cardio. As of December 2022 is when I started doing, like 3 to 4 times per week cycling rather than just once every week or once every 2 weeks. Overall, my health has improved a lot this year, and the other time it improved a lot was probably right when I left residency. As for business, I feel like I had set my expectations and goals decently high with regards to things like impact, reach, traffic, revenue, profit, things like that. And around this time, I said, we can be aiming higher because why not? It's actually really fun and exciting to be upping your skill set and to be constantly improving. And remember, the comparison of yourself versus yesterday or last year is what really matters. So why not keep pushing to improve? Going from no business experience to starting these companies and making them profitable was one game, one level, and that was fun. But then growing them from this level to the next tier, that's a whole nother game. And that's part of the next challenge. Hired a lot of new animators, hired social media managers and producer and COO, and expanded the team a lot.
I love you, boss.
On the personal side, again, going a little bit more to the health optimization, I've always cared about this stuff. Even in high school, I have some memories about family members telling me like, yo, don't care so much about what you eat and why are you so intense on exercise? And it's been a kind of constant trajectory up. I'd say a big inflection point was actually 2019. Got connected with Levels. I actually bought the Levels product, loved it so much, connected with them and started working with them. I'm actually wearing one right now. I've been wearing a CGM thanks to Levels for almost daily since 2019. And that was another inflection point where I started taking health and health optimization a lot more seriously. And then more recently, this year was another time. So this year, I leaned into it a lot more. VO2 max testing for the first time, resting metabolic rate, DEXA scans, a lot more testing. I got on a statin, I think last year, and now I added ezetimibe because essentially genetics. You know, my LP little a, my lipoprotein A is super high, which is largely just genetic. So because of that, you want to drive your ApoB and your LDL cholesterol lower. So have pretty aggressive targets there. The biggest part of this was shifting expectations. So before I was like, oh, if I exercise 5 hours a week in the gym, that's great. And now I realize that that's not very much in the grand scheme of things. And to hit certain targets for VO2 max of, for my age compared to the population at large, or same with strength, I need to be putting in way more time. So the new goal is to spend 2 hours a day on exercise. So as an example, I already did 1 hour of zone 2 this morning. I'm gonna do some mobility work and I'm gonna go to the gym. So it's probably gonna be like 2.5-ish hours today. All right, finally, 2024, what is next? On a personal level, I hosted Thanksgiving for the first time this year, 2023, and it was 7 of us. It was overall a very good experience. Hopefully we do it again next year here, but who knows? Everyone has to come all the way from California. It's kind of a trek for everyone else. But I wanna keep having experiences like this. So gonna plan a family trip for next year. I also wanna make my place even better and more inviting so I can have more people that I care about come stay with me, have a great time here. So whether it's Thanksgiving or just hosting other friends, I think I want to remodel my backyard, which is just dirt, doing little touches here and there that make my place more inviting and warm and welcoming and a nice place. And that's great because it then motivates me to work a little bit harder to make that a reality. Also doubling down on all the fitness stuff. I've had a lot of these little nagging pains and minor injuries. So working on mobility and rehab and getting alignment and body mechanics improved is gonna reduce that, because once I started hitting 6 or 7 hours on the bike per week, that's when my knee pain started happening. Also traveling a lot more in 2024. I'm gonna see my second Formula One Grand Prix after, 5 years? So the last one was in 2019, yeah, 5 years. And I already got trips planned for Japan and India and Hawaii, and it's gonna be a lot of traveling in 2024 as well. For Med School Insiders, I'm super excited that 2 very large projects are coming to a close. We wanted to launch them both at the end of this year. Probably gonna be early January for one of them, end of December for the other. And if you're a pre-med or a med student, you're gonna wanna stay tuned. It's pretty exciting stuff. As for MEM, the company's been mostly on autopilot for the last few years. We created a good product and people find it very useful, and a lot of people are using it every year. But now integrating it more strongly with the Med School Insiders MCAT course and adding more value there, we're really confident that we can create an experience that gives people the highest MCAT scores by a large margin compared to any other study method. And as for Jabal and Cars, we'll keep chugging along. It's been a very humbling experience because 2 years later, we're still not at 10K. And just for frame of reference, MSI grew to 100K in 5 months and 200K in 11 months from zero with no following whatsoever. But with Jabal and Cars, I have the personal channel, I can promote it here and there, and I can collaborate with other people because, I'm already established as a YouTuber, getting connected to those other car YouTubers, and still it's not growing fast. But I'm still gonna keep doing it, even if we continue to lose money on every video, because again, we're paying for a team of producer and editors and so on, because I love it. It's a lot of fun. I wanna finish off by saying a huge thank you to you all for your support, because I would not be able to do what I'm doing today, which I love, if it wasn't for your support with Med School Insiders or this personal YouTube channel, Jabal and Cars, or for the businesses, MEM, MSI. And it's amazing that we can architect our lives in such a way that was not available in times prior. But the reason we can do that is because of your support. So a big thank you to you all. Let me know with a comment down below. What do you want to see on Med School Insiders, on this channel, on Jabal and Cars in the new year? Much love, my friends. Happy New Year. And I'll see you all in the next one.